The Union Army was driven through the streets of Gettysburg to this hill. They dug in for a defensive fight. And you'll see a lot of artillery on the hill. The Union Army had nearly 100 pieces of artillery here and all the support personnel here on the hill. Over the course of the battle, there may have been 20,000 Union soldiers on this hill and nearby. When night fell on the battlefield, 47,000 soldiers had fought just north and west of town. 16,000 men were dead or wounded. The Union Army was shattered but driven back to this hill. Reinforcements arrived in the night, and the battle resumed with great ferocity on the 2nd and 3rd days of July 1863. On July 2nd, 1863, Robert E. Lee attacked both flanks of the Union line at Little Round Top, about 2 miles south of here, and Culp's Hill, which is just to the east. The Confederate Army attacked both flanks, hoping like a pair of pliers to crush the Union position that had positioned themselves on these hills in kind of a horseshoe or fishhook shape. At the end of the second day, 68,000 men fought, including night fighting here on Cemetery Hill. 22,000 men were dead or wounded. On the third day of the battle, having attacked both flanks of the Union line, General Lee launched a frontal assault with fresh Virginia troops under the command of George Pickett. Pickett's charge, involving 12,000 Confederate troops, attempt to break Union lines just south of here. In 45 minutes, 5,000 Southern soldiers were dead or wounded when they walked directly into Union artillery in a bloodbath. When the battle was over, 51,000 men were dead or wounded or captured as a result of the battle, including the men from Illinois. When the battle concluded, Robert E. Lee retreated from Gettysburg. The men in those Illinois cavalry regiments got back on their horses and pursued Lee over the distant mountains. However, Lee was able to escape and cross the Potomac River on July 14, 1863. The Gettysburg campaign ended. But the war kept going on for 2 more years till Lee finally surrendered at Appomattox. When the war ended, there were 700,000 dead. But if Lee had broken through here in Gettysburg, the country would have been torn in two and slavery would have continued. So when you stand on this blood-drenched ground, you just might remember that this may well be the place where slavery ended and freedom began. And Abraham Lincoln was well aware of it when he came to Gettysburg 4 months after the battle. There were dead everywhere, and they began burying the dead on the battlefield. But with winter coming, they wanted to have a ceremony to honor the Union soldiers. So they went out to the battlefield and they removed the bodies of all the Union soldiers and brought them here to Cemetery Hill in October and throughout the winter of 1863 and 64. This was a cornfield at the time of the battle, and in November of 1863 they were burying soldiers here on this field. Abraham Lincoln arrived by train on November 18, 1863 to dedicate the cemetery to the Northern soldiers. Southern soldiers, their bodies were later removed and buried in cemeteries in the South. This is a cemetery just for Northern soldiers, and the soldiers from Illinois are buried right in front of me. 6 bodies. Other Illinois soldiers, I suspect, are in the unknown plots. If you look to your right, those small markers with numbers and not names are the unknown. Of the 3,500 Civil War soldiers buried here, 979 are completely unknown. And I suspect some of the Illinois soldiers from the 82nd Regiment, from the 8th Illinois, and the 12th are among the unknown here on Cemetery Hill. Abraham Lincoln arrived by train on November 18, 1863, spent the night at the home of Attorney Wells, finished the Gettysburg Address there. The principal speaker at the cemetery dedication was a man named Edward Everett from Massachusetts. He had been the Secretary of State and the President of Harvard University. He came here on November 19, 1863, and before a crowd of 15,000 people here on Cemetery Hill, he spoke for 2 hours. And we don't remember much about what he said. And then Abraham Lincoln stood and spoke for 2 minutes. And we probably should never forget what he said. Now, a lot of people who come here want to know, where did he stand? And if you look behind you, you'll see the Soldiers' National Monument, dedicated in 1869. At the top of the monument is a woman. You might recognize her. In New York Harbor, she holds the Lamp of Liberty high, welcoming immigrants to the country. Here at Gettysburg, she holds the Wreath of Victory low. It was a sad and costly victory, north and south, to the whole country. Surrounding the monument, there are 18 northern stars representing 18 northern states who sent soldiers here, including Illinois. And at the base of the monument, there are allegorical figures representing war, history, peace, and plenty. For over 100 years, that's where people thought Abraham Lincoln stood and gave the Gettysburg Address. photographic evidence in Washington now tells us differently. That in fact he never did stand there. He stood just on the other side of the iron fence in what is now the Evergreen Cemetery. They built a speaker's platform 12 by 20. And on that platform the dignitaries sat. And on that platform Abraham Lincoln would stand and speak for 2 minutes. The spot is not marked in any way, but on the other side of those fences he would say, 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. And not far from here he said, the world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. And then that man from Springfield would say, this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and government of the people, and by the people, and for the people, shall not perish from the earth. The spot is not marked in any way. I can show you approximately where it was. But you know what? It doesn't matter where he stood. It does matter what he said. So with that, I'm going to conclude this tour.
Thank you so much. That was great.